Welcome to Strange Paradigms. In this weekly show, we'll be taking a look into the news and headlines to pick out curious reports of the strange and mysterious. Anything from UFO news to science advancements to stuff labeled fringe science and fringe phenomena. The idea is for you, the viewers, to be able to offer your thoughts and input on the stories we cover in the live chat. And I would like to mention at the very beginning of the show, it said Chris Plain. That was last week. And, life of a video editor. I got my intros confused. So you're going to see who the guest co host will be in just a minute. Also, each news item we cover in the show, I will put all the links in the description box below once the show is over, as well as chapters on the timeline index. So please make sure to share this video with anyone or groups who you think will be interested. First, let me say a huge thank you to Jessica Rodriguez, who gave a $50 super chat hours before the show began today. So thank you for always supporting Jessica. Now, let's get through today. There's a lot to cover, and let's start by giving a warm welcome to Jane Kyle, but as most of you may know her as UFO Jane. Jane, how's it
Hey,
going?
it is so awesome to be here. Already, we're going to be missing you on the Skinwalker Ranch stream. So
I'm
I'm
so
I'm
sad.
glad to join you
Well,
today. And then
thank
I
you.
hope to have you on my channel in the near future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to this. There's a lot of really fascinating articles that were dropped this week.
Mhm.
But before we get into it, for those that may not know who you are and those that are new to the channel, can you just give us a brief overview of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I mean, UFO Jane obviously is not on my birth certificate. um, I didn't really grow up, honestly, really thinking about UFOs. I was pretty naive about all that. Discovered them in young adulthood, and I had, some jobs in writing, and I had this journalism degree, and so I had this kind of natural interest in wanting to find out the truth about things. Found out UFOs were real, found out they were being seen all the time in my home state here in Texas. So I really just started documenting them out of curiosity, and then people started sending me their own reports. One thing led to another. Here I am more than 10 years later, and UFOs are officially real now, according to the government, which they actually weren't when I started documenting these strange lights and yeah,
That's so
UAP.
exciting. Right? That's the new
Yeah.
term. Well, it's an old
Mhm.
term, but now it's kind of being
Correct.
recycled
It
into a
is.
new term. And I would like to mention that all of Jane's social media links are also in the description box below.
Thank you.
Jessica, thank you again. Oh my goodness.
Oh,
So
very cool.
let's get into the first article. I'm going to share my screen so that everyone can follow up on what we're talking about. Where is it? Hold on. That's weird. Give me a sec.
Oh, I know. I actually still haven't figured out how to share my screen on StreamYard.
Bless your heart. Got it. Okay, here
I
it is.
figured out how to share slides and videos.
Okay, so here, I don't, hold on. I don't think I'm doing this right, but I'm just going to go over the article and then I'll share it in a little bit. But this one's really fascinating and it's called Ghostly Mirror World Might Be Cause of Cosmic Controversy. Okay, so just based off of the headline, Jane, what do you think about that? Does that sound like an attention grabber to you?
Oh, definitely. It's a very nice clickbaity headline for sure. But I mean, the article delivers in my opinion. I mean, I just saw Doctor Strange recently, and it's
Did you
all
like the
about
movie?
the multiverse. I really loved it. It got mixed reviews from what I can tell. I guess some people weren't really into it, but I loved it. And then I heard, I'm gonna say it wrong, Everything
Yeah,
All at
everything,
Once.
everywhere,
I've
all at
heard that's
once.
incredible, and it's exciting to think that perhaps scientists could actually be proving, some of these, like, fun stories.
And that's
Right?
the fascinating part. I mean, you're right. When I was first reading this article, the first thing that came to mind was the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once. And let me tell you, I loved that movie with like almost all of my heart. There were a few scenes that I'm like, not my cup of tea, but for the most part, it
Yeah.
was such a fantastic movie. Now, I haven't seen Doctor Strange. It's on my list of things to do because Doctor Strange is like he's my favorite character ever.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a great character. I mean,
He
just
is.
a truly unique superhero. I mean, I guess every superhero is unique and has their own origin story and all of that, but yeah, I feel like Doctor Strange's a little more relatable than
Yeah, he is because he's like a
like
regular guy and then his whole life changed. But let's get into the article and then we can talk
yeah,
about
yeah.
Doctor Strange a little bit later.
This is not an Avengers stream.
So, in this article, new research suggests an unseen mirror world of particles that interact with our world only via gravity. And this might be the key to solving a major puzzle in cosmology today, which is the Hubble constant problem. What is that? Well, let me explain that to you. The Hubble constant is the rate of expansion of the universe today. So, predictions for this rate are significantly slower than the rate found by our most precise local measurements. And it seems as science progresses, and I love this saying, things are turning more into science fact instead of science fiction. I think that is we've come such a long way these last few decades when it comes to the ideas of our universe, how things work, and the possibilities of other dimensions or even the multiverse. And movies are really catching up with that as well.
Oh, yeah, like, we I'm a little bit late on the bandwagon Trekkies, so don't get upset at me if I don't if I don't know all the characters, but we've been watching Star Trek lately, just not I don't know if it's in the right order even, it's just on TV, and so I'm gradually catching up to all of it, but when you watch, well, any kinda old sci-fi movie these days, it's amazing where it's like, "Oh, wow, we're doing we have FaceTime, like, that's obviously a big one that we see kinda everywhere, but, it's like we have a lot of these things that I'm not saying it very eloquently, but yeah, to what you're saying is it's all catching up, right? The science fiction is catching up to the science, and what's that really great quote from Einstein about imagination and how it's necessary essentially to progress in science. You have to have it's you have the ideas first, and then the math catches up, and then the experiments happen and prove what we all seem to know all
Exactly.
along, right? So yeah, it's
Exactly.
very exciting times right now.
It is, and imagination is key, especially for our scientists. If they don't think about it, well, we're not gonna have what we have today, such as the internet, light, things like
Mhm.
this. If there wasn't imagination to back up these inventions, we wouldn't be here. Now, what this article points out is that the existence of another hidden dimension or many dimensions would resolve a handful of so far unanswerable challenges posed by physics and astrophysics. So I had to do a little bit more digging into this. And when we look at this article and the possibilities is it's believed that gravity may be a constant across all dimensions, meaning that it's present or even have an origin in other dimensions, right? So affecting our dimension and possibly others, or vice versa. However, like I said, this is theoretical. And what's fascinating about this is maybe applying this theory could lead to the possibility of the other theory of the multiverse, right? All of these
Mhm.
different dimensions. And it appears that over time, cutting edge theories and equations in physics and astrophysics are pointing to the possibility that there are other dimensions, and math is also pushing that as well. So I feel like what we've been saying at the beginning, Jane, that science is catching up to the science fiction. It's catching up with the movies, and as we know, math doesn't lie. While it
Mhm.
may be hard to understand, once we get that grasp, we're able to understand a little bit more than what we did yesterday. And that's why this article in particular is so fascinating.
Yeah. It really got me, it really got me down a rabbit hole as it goes of black holes and all that. And I will say, oh, I love that somebody's bringing up John Titor, Titor. I don't technically know how to, if I've ever heard the name said out loud. Are you familiar with him, Christina? That was like that's an old school conspiracy theory about a guy who came onto the online forums, claimed to be a time traveler from the future, from a different parallel timeline, though. According to him, you don't go backward or forward on your own line. You hop and skip to different versions, right, of reality. That's how you can get about. And what's really fun about him is he shared some things, yeah, in his predictions and details that ended up like coming out later, or coming out to be true, like came out to be true later. He referenced some, I think, IBM computer part or something that would have been secret or not known at the time, and then later that was people became aware of it. So there's a lot of really fun, real elements to that time traveler story. And I don't know if I've ever heard of a better time travel story since, because you'll see those videos where somebody will claim to be from the future, and like
Right.
have photographs from the future. This was a really good one. I think they even tried to do a play out of it at one time. I remember looking into it in depth and uh, finding he had mentioned a militia in Florida, and I remember finding an actual one in Florida similar to what he'd referenced, but it didn't come into existence, until after he left his mark on the internet. So there were a lot of really fun things about that. I don't know that he was a time traveler. Jolly Green, yes, I think he probably worked for IBM. I think he knew some stuff and thought, well, this might be kind of a fun game to play online, right? But I do give it to him that he was a good storyteller, and he obviously knew a thing or two about like what we're talking about here, like,
That's interesting.
right? And so
That's
not
very
to diverge
interesting.
too much, but I will say I did think about things like time travel. So when I think about, okay, like the hidden parts of the universe, right? I do want to preface this by something, and maybe there's some real, maybe Christina, or somebody in the chat can explain this to me, but I have reached out on YouTube to multiple scientists and uh, fans of those channels for an explanation. I can't really get one, and maybe we're getting to it here with like this article, for example. So how we see like how you'll have your teacher or a scientist or a narrator of a PBS documentary explain the fabric of space-time, right? And you'll see a grid, right, and a ball, which is supposed to be a planet rolling alongside it, right, bending it, or you'll see the trampoline, right? And so what drives me absolutely mad, because they never this far, is like, well, what is under the stinking trampoline? Why is everything getting pulled down and not up equally? Why is the ball not going through the grid, right? And making it just move around, versus why is it pulling the grid down? And it makes my brain want to explode. And under that, if that is how it works, if that's how we're observing the bending of light and matter, right, bending, creating this curvature, then we're seeing a perfect asymmetry to the universe, right, where we have where space-time is essentially dividing an upper plane, right, that it's not right, where gravity behaves differently, right, and then a lower plane, right, where everything's somehow, for some reason, it's heavier down there. I have yet to see a concise explanation of that, and so I'm really curious if somebody in the chat or in the comments later could give me one, or link me to a video or an article that explains it. But I haven't seen a good explanation. Now, but when we talk about things like dark matter, about invisible forces, and I think about, okay, yeah, other timelines, time travel. I think about consciousness. Could there be could this be our consciousness, our invisible, right, thoughts that then, are not matter, right, or so are dark matter. So yeah, I want to hear your thoughts on it, Christina. But I appreciate you being given the forum to talk about that, because this article definitely had me thinking, going back to that, I guess, paradigm, right, that we have about space-time. And I will say, if you do think about space-time in a 3D or a 4D space, right, where like we're kind of being pulled on from all ends, or it starts to make more sense, right? So yeah, like maybe string theory, maybe these other quantum mechanics, right, will solve this. And maybe that's why it's so perplexing, because we're missing something. But yeah, what were
Yeah,
your thoughts
it's
on the
pretty
article?
I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty bizarre. I mean, another thing that came to mind before we jump into the next article was it kind of reminds me of string theory, which we studied back in high school, like very, very briefly. And that at the very smallest possible scale, much smaller than subatomic particles, there are strings of energy that all vibrate at a certain constant rate. And these strings make up everything we know and see, and they're the building blocks of subatomic particles. And to keep in mind that string, like this is alleged string theory,
Right.
okay? Like we don't really know anything for
Mhm.
certain. But I remember that in one class, we speculated on whether or not strings vibrating at a different frequency would make up the building blocks of particles in other dimensions, that there could be multiple dimensions all around us, unseen and not interacting because they are made up of strings vibrating in different frequencies. And so that still intrigues me, and it definitely blows my mind to think about that even today. So that's one thing that came to mind when reading this article. For the next one, and we're kind of going fast paced because we do have a lot to cover
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
happened this week. So this
That
one,
one was just a meaty one, though. I definitely think people should go read that article, because there's more, especially if you're science-minded, and you wanna understand it more.
exactly,
Yeah.
100%. And like I said, all of the links to the articles will be in in the description box below when this show is over. But this one really caught my attention, and it says house that inspired The Conjuring sells for more than $1.5 million. Right off the bat, Jane, have you seen this movie or do you know the story?
I I read, like, I was familiar with the article and what it taught, what it mentioned of with the story in that regard, but I don't know if I saw The Conjuring. I mean, I've seen my good share of horror movies and ghost, stories, but I don't remember it, The Conjuring. Have you seen it?
I've actually never seen the film, and
Yeah.
I didn't know the history behind it. So I did a lot of research after reading this article, and I'm thinking this is going to be a fascinating story to share with our audience today. But so again, I haven't seen it, but let's kind of talk about the article and then we'll get into detail. So the Rhode Island farmhouse that inspired the 2013 horror movie had been sold to a Boston developer who plans to keep it open to the public. Now, since 2019, I believe, this house has been open for paranormal investigators where even the public can do tours and stuff, where for a 10-hour tour where you can stay the night, it's $125. Or if you want to do a tour for an hour, it's about $25. And I'm like, whoa, that's so cool. I had no idea that you could take tours there. Well, this new owner wants to keep it open to the public still. And the original asking price for this home was 1.2 million, but it ended up being bought for 1.5, which I was like, I don't know if I would pay that much for an 18th century home. Like that's going to need a lot of repair. It's going to need a
Right.
lot of work just to maintain it. But what's interesting about the film, again, for those that aren't familiar with the history, it's based off of the family called the Pensons, P- Pear Person Perrin family, and they had their encounter from 1970 to 1980. So 10 years of just these obscure paranormal activity. And it included things from apparitions to physical attacks by unseen hands, along with the typical things like hearing footsteps, having doors open and close, and things like that. And so it's believed that the entity that was causing all of these hauntings was by a woman called Bathsheba Sherman, who hung herself in the house. So this is again a pretty weird story, and the family was so terrified. The mother, the father, and their five daughters, they ended up leaving 10 years later because they couldn't handle it anymore. But the reason to why they didn't leave earlier was due to financial instability. So they were just like, they were so horrified living in this house, but they simply couldn't leave because they didn't have the funds for it. And I feel kind of bad for them in that aspect. I feel like that's even more traumatizing. I really do. Mark, thank you so much. It says, "Hi, Christina. I missed your show with Jimmy yesterday. Please keep up the amazing work." Mark. Okay, Jane, please say his last name.
Mark Tasaka?
Yeah.
How is it? I wonder
No,
how
no,
it
it's
is.
Asaka. Asaka is correct.
Oh,
But
it is? Yes.
I ask all of my guests to say his last
That's
name
so
because I
fun.
just can't say it very
Yeah.
coolly.
Well, it was like a 50-50. Yeah, I had, 2 different ways I could go, and I got lucky.
But the way Jimmy says it is like Tasaka. I
It's a
just
fun one. That's a good last name. I wonder if he gets called by his last name a
I
lot.
feel like that would only be appropriate
Yeah. I
to
always
only
got called
address him as his
Kyle
last
because
name.
it's a first, just because it's like a guy's first name, so it's fun to call. So I think when you have a weird last name or cool sounding last name, it ends up taking over your first name.
For the most part,
Yeah.
for the most part. With this house, while it was built in the 18th century, it was passed down from generation to generation for a total of 8 generations. Okay, that's a long time to keep a house in the family. But what's pretty bizarre about this is that it's had a lot of very terrible and mysterious deaths, including some of the children that drowned in a nearby creek. One was murdered, and several of them hung themselves in the attic. So it seems like this household just has a lot to it. So it ended up, oh, wait, what's actually really interesting about the story by the Perrin's family was that they ended up inviting paranormal investigators, two pretty famous ones by the name of Lorraine and Ed Warren. Now, I've never heard of these people, but apparently they're pretty famous, and they ended up bringing this story to the public, what happened in this household in the 1970s into the 1980s. And pretty much, Lorraine did a seance in the house. And what happened during the seance was that the wife of the owner of the house became possessed, speaking in tongues and raised from the ground in her chair. The husband was so mortified by this seance that he kicked out the Warrens, the paranormal investigators, uh, because he was worried about his wife's mental stability. And according to the one of the daughters, the family had to keep living there after these horrible experiences again due to financial instability. But it ended up being sold by a woman. So it ended up being sold in 1987, so 7 years after the original family left. And then it was kept until 2019. But back in 2015, the owner by the name of Norma Sutcliffe planned to sue the Warner Brothers because after the film was released in 2013, people began trespassing into her property of the house, trying to steal objects and trying to be a part of the phenomenon. And she said that it happened at all times of the day to the point where she had to call the police once at 3 a.m. because there were a whole group of people outside of the house. But she herself never experienced anything while she was living there. And I found that even more intriguing. Really did.
Yeah, I don't have you ever so I'll say I've thought about these same things that I've thought about Skinwalker Ranch as I do really haunted houses, ghosts, poltergeist, and it's what really confuses me when I start to think about the phenomenon and I'm like, what are we talking about here? Like, what is going on here? Because if poltergeists and ghosts are related to UFOs, then we probably have to start over, like from scratch, like right with what we're thinking about all this. And so I don't know if you've ever heard like the theory about residual hauntings or energy. And
See, I was
it's
thinking about the hitchhiker effect with
it would
this.
be kind of so it would be I guess it would be another take on that versus so rather than it being this contagious thing necessarily, it would be more like something whether you choose to engage with it or not. But it's the idea, and I thought about this. We stayed in a hotel in San Antonio, the what's it called? Oh, the Manger Hotel. And there's a few in San Antonio and one in Austin as well. Uh, in Central Texas that have reported hauntings, and they're old buildings. And so we stayed in one time, and nothing happened. For me, it was a cute hotel, and we had a nice, pleasant vacation. But my mom, when she stayed there, she had a really different experience. There wasn't any stereotypical hauntings or anything like that. It was just like a really bad vibe and energy that seemed to be like external, that seemed to come from somewhere else and go with the tragedies, that had happened in this hotel. And so the idea, though, I guess, to back it all up is is people going to like the same place over and over again. Oh shoot, my internet. Oh no, oh, no.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, good.
You're good. You're good.
Um, okay, I guess I lost you. Uh, People going to the same place over and over again, saying saying the same ghost story over and over again, like adding negative energy right to the place over and over again, and then I guess through some form of physics it collects and stays in that spot. So it's kind of like more of an interactive uh, phenomenon, I suppose, if you think about it like that, versus this house is haunted. Maybe it's because people keep going to the house thinking it's haunted, doing seances, right?
That could be
Channeling for ghosts,
possible.
right? So it also doesn't say that I guess you could believe ghosts are real or not real and still explore that theory. So it would just maybe it is related, yeah, to the hitchhikers.
Yeah,
But
I
that's where
didn't
I go
even
with these
think about
things.
that. No,
Yeah,
that's a great point to make. I mean, like I said, I was thinking more of it made me wonder about the hitchhiker effect. Like maybe the entities followed the previous owner, but then not Norma. Well,
right.
she ended up selling the house in 2019 to another family who ended up making it open to the public for people to go in and investigate and be a part of the phenomenon pretty much.
Mhm.
And so that kind of leads me to the question. What do you think about that? Do you think it was wise to open this house to the public? Do you think it was just kind of dumb to make money? And this also goes to the live chat. Please answer that question. What are your thoughts on opening a quote unquote haunted house for people to enter, but to buy tickets for?
I don't think I have a problem with it. I think it's a I what else are you gonna excuse me, what else are you gonna do with the property, right? It sounds like it's kind of a disturbing place to live in, and bad things happen to you there, and so maybe it's better to call it what it is, call a spade, and go ahead and try to profit from it. I suppose if ghosts are real, then I don't know what's wrong with allowing people to try to learn about them there or look for them just like we would right at Skinwalker Ranch. I guess the question is, I mean, I think people are allowed to make money. I think ghosts right now are not a political topic. We don't have the government saying they're real. So in a way, that's like an insurance policy. And like, um, basically, it's what I'm saying is Skinwalker Ranch, because we have all this like military activity behind it and this, you know, it's this big political topic, you know, that you have to have opinion about it one way or the other. We might have to handle that a little bit differently when it comes to marketing and making money, right? Because it's turning into this serious topic, right? Where there's taxpayer funds behind.
Right.
But right now, I feel like ghosts are kind of just like fair game. It's still a fun thing to do. You know, there's ghost tours in San Antonio I want to go on. I think the Manger Hotel, even in San Antonio, I think it enjoys the articles out there talking about how it's haunted because people are more likely to stay there, right? So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I do think, let's say ghosts started to enter the UAP hearings, right? And it becomes this serious thing that's driving policy and news headlines and conversations around the Thanksgiving dinner table. I do
Yeah.
think there becomes a different, I think, responsibility for it. And I don't know if I'm explaining that just right, but
I mean,
yeah,
I get what you're saying. It seems that a
yeah.
lot more researchers are making that connection between UFOs and the paranormal. Now, some people did answer the question on what are your thoughts on having the house open to the public? And Shelley says, leave the deceased alone. Hides
That's fair.
says, different strokes for different folks. Charles, thank you so much. It says, they think the hitchhikers follow the ones that are able to see them like a parasite. That's interesting. That's a very interesting theory. And I feel like the hitchhiker effect is something that needs to be researched more. When I did interview Thomas Winterton, the superintendent of Skinwalker Ranch, he touched on the subject and he talked about that he believes in the hitchhiker effect. But it seems that I think there just needs to be a little bit more investigations or more research to be involved in this because it seems that, again, with the more researchers being involved in all of this and seeing the connection between the paranormal and the supernatural, it seems very relevant to talk about. Jessica says people and their beliefs on the stories being true can manifest more of the paranormal and more energy and emotions are involved, just like what you said,
That
Jane.
is such a better way to say it, Jessica. That is what I was trying to say, and you put it into really great words. So thank you for that. You're on my mind.
And
Yeah,
she's not, I mean, again, I'm not too familiar with the paranormal. I mean, while I'm interested in it, I'm still very new to the topic. So I've heard a lot of stories like that where you can, through intention, you're able to manifest or I guess keep things there. But for the most part, I feel like, and I would like for there to be more tests done on that. I
sure.
feel like it would be more accepted if science got involved. Now,
Yeah.
we're going to shift gears a little bit from something a little haunting to something pretty darn exciting. And this is happening in the month of June. There's a lot of great things happening in June. We just had the meteor shower, which some said was kind of a dud. But if you didn't like the meteor shower, this one's going to knock your socks off. So, 5 planets are about to align up in the sky, and you don't even need a telescope. And you can see it for the whole month of June. I'm excited. This is going to be awesome. So, pretty much in this article, you will be able to see 5 planets align with the naked eye. These are including Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. So, Jane, are you going to go outside?
Oh, of course.
Look up in the
I
sky?
Especially now that you're giving me the heads up, I feel like I always find out about these alignments and cool things the day after. And I'm like, "Oh, darn it."
I
But
know the feeling, but in this case, we
uh,
can see it for the entire month, and it's actually going to start tonight. Tonight
oh,
is the
cool.
first night it's going to start. And having the planets align like this is apparently pretty rare. The last time that this happened was in December of 2004, so about 18 years ago. And what's super cool about this in particular is that they're going to appear in order of their distance from the sun. So from left to right as you scan the horizon, which means it's going to start with Mercury and end with Saturn when you're looking at the night sky. And that just makes it a little bit easier for people, I think.
Right. Yeah, that's
So
neat. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to pull up a picture for those to see how it looks. And the most significant day to look at this alignment is going to be June 27th. So take a look at this. This is kind of how it's going to end up looking. You got Mercury, and you got Saturn all the way back here. And this is how the moon is going to look like on the 27th. Pretty cool. So make sure to take your pictures, have your telescopes out. But again, you don't need to have a telescope to see these planets. But now, if you want to see a little bit more detail, then yeah, if you have one or if you want to go to your local observatory, they're probably going to have a cool festival happening this month. I'm not sure, but I feel like that would be appropriate.
Do you think there's anything to, or I wonder if anybody in the chat does? I have not looked into astrology or anything like that. I don't read the well, whatever, the predictions for your day. What is that called? I'm just at a loss for words. Jessica probably knows what I'm talking about. um, but do you think there's anything to that? I do wonder. I would think on a very just logical level. I mean, we were talking about gravity earlier and the fabric of space-time and all unseen forces, and it does seem like if any sort of alignment of the planets is going to have some unique effect, right? And how the fabric of space-time is laying, right? And what's happening. And I tend to take kind of a practical viewpoint of whether here on Earth is directly aligned, right, with what the planets are doing, because that affects the sun, right? Essentially, like it, it's just all connected. It's like an ecosystem, right? And so I did look up December 2004 storm. And so 2004 December was when this happened last, and there was a historic snowstorm struck the Ohio Valley in Ontario and Canada and Texas on Christmas Eve. And it brought snowfall. Now everybody in Texas knows that when it snows Texas, that's a pretty unique event. And so I always am curious if just some of our, the seasons and patterns of climate that we see over time, there could be something to that, and there could be some maybe overlap with astrology, and maybe eventually I will become one of those people who knows like about all the signs and numerology and all that. But yeah, so I don't know. Let's look to December. Let's see, what happens. Maybe just be prepared if you're in Texas and stock up, because the last time it froze here, it was not fun, guys. The snow
Wh-
was fun. That part was fun.
Who doesn't love
We
snow,
went to
especially if
Found
you're
myself
not
like
used to
leaning
it?
on it. Yeah,
Makes
down
it
a
so
little
much
hill.
fun.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
when it comes to astrology or
yeah.
horoscopes, I don't know enough about that. But maybe when we're dealing with like
Horoscope.
gravitational anomalies and maybe that affects our mood the same way that the moon is supposed to,
Right.
so like storms and earthquakes. I mean, I can see as being likely, but not astrology like telling fortunes and stuff, but the
Yeah,
science, again, earthquakes and volcanoes and plate tectonics. So an alignment maybe can become a lens to make gravitational effects, but again, when it comes to horoscopes and things like that, I'm just not really familiar with it to kind of give an opinion and saying like yes or absolutely
yeah.
not. I would like to mention for those that want to look up into the sky and want to know the constellations, the stars, or know what planet that you're looking at, there is an app on the phone for the iPhone. It is called Night Sky. And on the Android, it is called Night View Light. I have it. I recommend it for it's free. It's pretty simple. It also has like mystical music in the background, which I deactivated because I just don't like apps playing music when I have it open. But it is a really cool app for those that want to just go out at night and understand the stars and the constellations that you're looking at. So the month of June, please go outside, look at this. Again, this hasn't happened in 18 years, and now that the weather is nice and warm in the night, right? The nighttime. It seems like You got to go outside. And who knows? I mean, maybe you'll see more than just planets align. Pretty exciting. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's right. You can never lose by going sky watching or UFO hunting, right? I mean, oh, you might see a shooting star, too bad, right? It's always worth it, and you always learn something. And when there are bright stars or the moon is bright, it is in some ways, I guess, the worst time to go UFO hunting, I guess, because you have all the light pollution, right? But this is a good time to, like, see what a star looks like through your camera and do some because when we capture identified objects, on our iPhones, or if we have better cameras, that's great. We can learn a lot about the unidentified ones, right? And kinda know what little optical illusions to look out for. So I think this would be a perfect night. Uh maybe just use your like Instagram, and pull up a star and see how funky that looks. Does it change colors? Does it seem to pulsate? Because there are a lot of videos out there, right, that show star-like UFOs, right?
that's
So what
correct.
better way than to study the stars than so that you can sort through all of that, right?
Exactly. And I want to shout out to the Skinwalker Insider in the channel right now because we have seen Eric Bard using similar software on his night live feeds. And I would like to mention y'all need to join the insider service, by the way, and I'll put the link in in the chat and in the description box. And it's called skinwalker-ranch.com because you definitely want to be an insider. It is so awesome to have that live feed of the entire ranch. Oh, I love it. And I
You
talked
should
about it on
get
Twitter a few times.
You should be getting they should pay you, Christina, to
They
promote
should.
the Insider. They really should. Like, people need to just, write History Channel on Twitter and petition to have Christina be an official like, they should be an official sponsor, right?
I would do it for free, and I'm already doing that because I really love Skinwalker
Yeah,
Ranch
I
and
know
the
you
team
would.
as
Yeah.
well.
Mhm.
Before we move on, because this is going to lead into the next article, and this is a question for you, Jane, and for the live chat. Why is understanding astronomy a big deal, in your opinion? And for those on the live chat, please, what are your thoughts on that? Why do you think it's
Oh my
important?
gosh, it's so important. I mean, and by the way, that was my hardest class in college. I found astronomy to be so difficult. So it's funny that here I am, like, wondering about the stars, and maybe that's why I can't identify anything, guys, right? Because oh, it's so important. Ironically, it seems to be the thing. And if there's astronomers in the chat, they're gonna kill me for this. But it seems to be one of the more mysterious fields of science, and I don't mean that there's not plenty of hard math and understanding. Um, like I said, I didn't do well in those classes, but we're trying to understand objects that we haven't, as human beings, physically gone to, and that's really, really cool, right? We went to the moon, so many times, right, a while ago, and we've been all around this planet, and we've sent some probes out, right? But if you think about just how many stars, the astronomers say are out there, it's kind of it's incredible. We have to and but on a fundamental level, we have to know what stars look like. We got to know the difference between a satellite and a star and a plane, and understanding just the basic elements of our solar system, and how a planet is actually versus a ball of fire, right? Or a
Right.
black hole or exploding star, or a reflection of light reflection that's happening from a satellite that's passing over. Just on a fundamental level, we're not going to be able to get to the bottom of the truth about UFOs if we don't do our best to understand all the identified lights out there, on a just basic level.
It is. It is. And we do have a question by Miss Campbell. And it says, can you gals share your fave sky watching techniques, snacks, and activities? Well, look, always snacks. It's mandatory to bring snacks when you are sky watching. So what I like to do when I go out is I do use my Psionics Aurora Pro for sky watching, and I have some pretty strong binoculars. Snacks. Obviously, I like carrots and hummus because I sometimes I like to like bring a kettle of hot water and then obviously make ramen, which I'm taking a ramen break for a week, and it's harder than it sounds. But as for activities, I do like to go to hot spots where people are seeing UFOs, Bigfoot, and other anomalies. So a trip to a mountainous area is probably my favorite activity to like camp out there for a week with friends. And while we're having fun and drinking and eating, I'm with my eyes on the skies and definitely on the tree line as well. And when I mean drinking water, guys. Okay. Drinking water. Okay. Just want to make that
I
clear.
don't make as healthy decisions as Christina. So I'm probably often drinking a beer when I'm looking for UFO. I hate looking for things in the sky here in the city. I just feel like it's such a crapshoot and there's so much light pollution and I mean, just forget it is kind of how I feel about it. You really have to be on it with good equipment if you're in any kind of city situation. So essentially, anytime I have, luckily, my mother-in-law has a house on the beach here in Texas, and
Oh, nice.
we get around. So anytime, oh my gosh, we were also lucky enough to go to Jamaica in like a summer ago, and oh my gosh, that sky. So whenever I'm at the beach, that's when my eyes are peeled, and like I said, like you always see something cool. I will say I have not seen a UFO yet. I've seen some cool things. Well, I have one okay UFO story. But after all that stargazing, I haven't caught anything yet. So I don't think I'm probably the best person for advice. I can tell you what to do as a witness, right? Is if you want to document what you're seeing, is to make sure. Well, obviously start filming, um, but I think if you aren't lucky enough to film what you're seeing, because most people aren't, you're just not
That's
prepared
right.
to see a UFO. It's just the truth. Draw it right afterward. Write down everything you remember right afterward, and then message me. If you're in Texas or not, but just get it down somewhere immediately after the sighting. Ask anybody around you who maybe witnessed it too, what they think because really for the most part, but maybe this will change, with like tips from Christina and, apps like this, people might be readier for these sightings, right? And you can track the plane in real time and rule that out and rule out the satellite, right? And check, you can compare the stars, right? And rule out stars and all that as you go. That's beautiful if you can get all that down during
That's
your UFO sighting.
that's very important advice. Let's say you can't record your sighting, writing it down immediately after is very important because those details are still very fresh in your mind. And I do not like in my car, I have a notepad and pen that I keep religiously wherever I go. I keep in my backpack just in case because sometimes like typing on the phone can be a struggle or like you don't have any battery on your phone, right? So having a notepad and pen is crucial. So I do like that advice, Jane. Something that's not mentioned too often.
Picture is
Another
great. A picture says a thousand words, as they say, because I think often too, or even if you have a video, still draw it because I think often people see so much more with their naked eye than what their phone can capture, right? Or even just the written testimony. And I give an example. If you let's say like when these stars align, it's gonna look so magnificent and incredible. And I bet you when you take a picture, it's just gonna look like a bunch of street lights, right? So, but maybe you can put a drawing together, a digital rendering to show more really of truly what you were looking at.
100% agree. And Zenza brought a great point, and he says also a dedicated voice recorder. Sounds kind of like Charles Halt, Zenza, from the Bentwaters UFO encounter. But you are correct. Having a tape recorder is important because you're going to speak a lot faster than you can write.
Yeah, good point. Yeah,
Oh,
very good idea.
and before we continue, while we're on this topic, I do want to mention that I will make a Skywatch gear room in my Discord server right after this show because you guys are inspiring me right here, right now. And if you haven't joined my Discord server yet, there's over 500 members continuing the after show chat with many different rooms covering everything from Skinwalker Ranch to the paranormal to breaking news. So jump over to the Discord server, and I know Zenza will probably drop that link. So, what else is fascinating? Fascinating about the month of June. I love June. It's like the beginning of summer. But what else is so cool about June is that we're going to be getting the very first photos of the James Webb Space Telescope.
Here we
Now,
go.
the original photos that we got were kind of like they were practice shots. They were alignment shots, and I'll show those a little bit later. They weren't really like the real deal. So we will be getting the first images from the James Webb Space Telescope on I don't know why it's saying July 2nd. It's meant to be June 2nd. This article is incorrect. So some articles are saying June 12th, and this one's saying July 12th. Now I'm a little bit confused because I looked at several different articles, but either June 12th or the July 12th,
Still
we're
Sam.
going to be getting pictures, and I'm so excited. And now this is going to be pretty awesome. But my question is for you, Jane. What are your thoughts on it taking 6 months to get the first photos, or still waiting to get the first photos?
Yeah, well, it's so funny because I remember when this was all being announced and we were all going back and forth online about like, oh, what is this going to be like? And I remember a big conversation was, are we going to get photos right away, or will they keep them secret? And in this article, I mean, it essentially says that they released some test images early on, but they're keeping these initial images secret. And they're kind of saying it like in a casual way, like, oh, we're just, waiting to verify the data and I don't know, I guess confirm the I don't know, the implications that they're making of the images is what I can gather. I guess they're just doing their checks. What do you think about it all, Christina?
It's um it's rather disappointing in some aspects. We are aware that NASA is keeping their target secret for the time being, where they are first pointing the telescope. What I do know is that this was the very first image that was released by the James Webb Space Telescope, and it's a nice crisp picture of a star, probably one of the crispiest pictures from a telescope. And again, these were just to test how it was running, the alignments and the sharpness
Right.
as well. Also, and every other point of light in that photo is a galaxy. Here is another
Overwhelming.
image of when they were testing all of the different pieces to the telescope. You have all of these different aspects. And if you, again, all of these little lights is a galaxy. I think when you put it in that perspective, it really does blow your mind.
Yeah, it's kind of what I was getting at when we're having the whole just talking about astronomy. Um, just of all the scientific fields out there to try to grasp this, to be doing the math to figure out that, like, it's just yeah, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. And especially since we are still learning so much about gravity and that dark matter is still pretty theoretical right now. So much is so theoretical still. So much that makes up all that surrounds us. And yeah, I'm
Right.
excited to see more photos, especially if they've been hanging on to them for this long. Yeah, I'm wondering what's the hubbub. Right?
Well,
Like,
for those in the live chat, what do you think? Why do you think it's taken 6 months, in your opinion, to get the first images of the James Webb Space Telescope that weren't a part of like testing the alignment and things like that? It's a question that a lot of people have difficulty answering, and I've asked this question to multiple people, and they all kind of have slightly different answers. But is there some shenanigans going on here? That's my question.
is it that the photos aren't impressive enough, or that they're showing something that they weren't expecting, and so they have to do some checks around it, right? Or is it, I don't know, or is there I can't imagine what you wouldn't I can't imagine there's something you wouldn't want foreign enemies to see in such a distant, far off point in space. Uh, so yeah, I mean, I will say it is building a lot of hype around the images. I feel like in a way people are going to pay attention to them more now, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm coming at it from too much of a like or this niche world we're in. I don't know if the general public, if they're paying attention or not.
Right, which leads me to my next question. Do you think these that when these pictures are going to be released, is it a big deal, or you couldn't care less? And this is also a live chat question. Are you excited for these images, or you're like, I mean, I have better things to do with my life? I'm stinking excited. I don't care
I'm
what the image is. I want to see it.
Yeah, I even if it's yeah, even if I have a problem with it, I guess I don't know what my problem would be with it. Yeah, anything. I mean, I like any data point, right? And understanding like what is going on in this cosmos. I mean, it's amazing that we don't really at the end of the day know why we're here, what we're doing here, how we got here. That, after all these, millions of years. I mean, if we consider like when we were technically, I guess pre Homo sapien or whatever, what, like 2 million years, and we still don't know the answers to these questions.
Not yet, but
Yeah.
hopefully we will soon. Now, Dan brought up something really interesting, which is we're actually going to cover a little bit later today. And it says for the first year, the James Webb Space Telescope will focus on just two rocky worlds, the lava covered 55 Cancri E and the airless LHS 3844B. Well, we are going to be talking about that lava earth like world a little bit later. And let me tell you, doing the research for that was pretty crazy. Also, thank you so much for the super chat, because you see the smile, like talking about space. I could do this all day. I could do this all day, but I'm practically going in blind. Okay, but before we get into that, let's talk about some cryptids happening in your home state, Jane. Happening in your home
Yeah.
state. Also, Steppenwolf, thank you so much for the super chat. So let's get into this one. This one
Yeah,
is
I love crypto stuff. I'm not an expert, but I love it.
so this article, people have written about it, and I'm getting it directly off of Reddit. And I know, like, Reddit's not always credible, but this is a really interesting story, and you can decide what you think about it. And here's like the thread, and again, I'm gonna share it after the show, but I'm gonna pull up the actual picture so you can get a better view of it. So, pretty much in Amarillo, Texas, but also pronounced Amarillo, Texas,
Yeah.
there was this weird cryptid, and I'm going to share the picture. And before we even get into the article, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you see this? For me, it was a skinwalker. But what about you?
I mean, yeah, I totally yes, but I really did just immediately go to costume. There was somebody in a costume, but then a skinwalker actually there are that image of the man wearing the, I guess, wolf head, mask. So, and then that's been in my head lately because, we're watching Skinwalker Ranch right now. So I don't know if that's just my bias going into it, but my gut is, oh, that's somebody in a costume. or that's somebody wearing a wolf like top, not full body suit, but
I mean,
maybe.
look, that's understandable, but when I was really looking at this picture, I noticed that the legs were super long. They were kind of, oddly bent, and then the body seems very short. There's no real neck. I mean, again, maybe it's a costume, but that pose is very weird. It looks very uncomfortable. And even
Yeah.
the arms are incredibly long. As soon as I saw this picture, I actually stood up from my chair and I'm like, how long are my arms compared to like my legs? Do they touch the knee? Do they not? And what I noticed was like, our arms don't really go that far
Yeah,
down. Again,
I
could it be a
I
costume?
agree. Mhm.
Absolutely. But just looking at it,
I agree.
I'm
Look
not
at the
sure.
hip and the butt. So that was my first reaction, "Oh, this is somebody in a suit." And then when I started to zoom in on it, I was like, "Wait, that couldn't be the leg, because that would put the butt, like, way up there into the rib cage." Right?
Right.
And so I think that's an illusion. And so then I'm like, "Well, then that's a completely an illusion then that those are even legs potentially?" And so then I was like, "Well, I was like, is there a time lapse thing going with this? Right, where we're seeing 2 images in one, or we're really making, a mountain out of a molehill. I've been having fun with that phrase lately. Uh, maybe Travis Taylor is saying it on Skinwalker Ranch lately. I saw somebody in the chat earlier was like, "Jane is obsessed with Skinwalker Ranch." I am, it's true. Yeah, so then I'm like, are we just seeing something that completely is not there at all, and it's just we're making something out of nothing? It it's a person though, right? It's somebody walking.
I mean, this is the definition of strange news. This is the definition of it. So, to get into the details of this from what I've found doing the research for it. So, again, this is a very controversial image, and all over Reddit, you're going to read a bunch of mixed comments. But this was taken outside the perimeter fence of the Amarillo Zoo in Amarillo, Texas,
Right.
or Amarillo, Texas. And this apparently was posted in a private zookeeper Facebook group, and the Reddit account holder wrote, the keeper said that he caught the image on a trail cam pointed at a perimeter fence and couldn't figure out what it was. And then it continues. I believe it was pointed from inside the zoo at the perimeter fence. The OP's other posts go back at least a year and are all just normal animal keeper type posts, meaning this is kind of like the only odd picture in the entire group. Everything else, people were able to identify what kind of creature, what kind of animal it was. In this case, no one that's a part of the group was able to know what it was.
I'm wondering if it's a blurred, if it's a person in two, that there's 2 images of one person. I feel like that doesn't happen in trail cams, but I
It
mean, you
doesn't.
see that with bug wings fluttering, because the wings are fluttering so fast, right? So you can kind of see sometimes like the blur, I guess, right, between really fast moving images in these cams. So I'm not like, it really is a hard image to make sense of, because it doesn't really work on any level. I mean, yeah, I'm with people that is a furry. It not
I mean, yeah, look at those ears. I mean, whatever they could be, they're
some
very prominent. So,
um
for those in the live chat, what do you think? Do you
yeah, the
think
leg bone's
like
wild. Like it doesn't make sense.
it doesn't, and that's why we cover these
Mhm.
types of cases. And I wouldn't normally give coverage to an image like this except for the fact that it kind of matches a description of a skinwalker, and that's the biggest reason to why I'm bringing this up. Otherwise, for the most part, I kind of brush off these types of pictures because that's all they are. They're not video. They're just
Right.
it's just a photo,
Oh,
and
I
it
would
makes
love
it a
to see
lot
the video.
more difficult to decipher. It does, but it's also like hard not to talk about it. So I'm going to
Yeah.
show you where Amarillo, Texas is for those that didn't know. I didn't know. So it is up here on this is the panhandle, right? Is that what
Yep.
it's called? Or is this the panhandle?
Yeah, I think Panhandle is more like, yeah, toward the west. That's so funny that I don't know off the top of my head, though. It's crazy how big Texas is. It's, when I talk about UFOs in Texas and, like, I don't really do field work, guys. I'm not, like, driving out to Amarillo or driving out to El Paso to investigate people's reports. I have to just kind of map them, right, and see what the correlations are, because I even thought about originally, oh, maybe I should focus just on one city, right? And then I can truly, right, like I can go to all the spots that, people are seeing things, but I resorted
Oh,
to the crowdsourcing.
Danny said it is the Panhandle. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Yeah, and Danny's from Texas. He's like, shame on
Oh,
you, Jane.
I knew that. I know I didn't
Yeah.
know that, but I know that now. I was gonna
I
guess like
always
Miami.
imagine
I don't know.
I
Danny, you give
always
me like
imagine
Miami vibes.
El Paso, but you're right. You must be
Oh,
right. Yeah.
he's from Dallas, Fort Worth. Rock on.
Got some
Okay. So,
Texas, paranormal folks out here, or UFO folks, I should say.
well, apparently a lot of things happen in Texas. In some aspects, it's kind of like a hot spot of a state. Also,
Yeah.
it's huge, so you're gonna have to have something strange
It could just be
going
that,
on in
right?
Texas.
There's that many people, right? There's just that many more people, right? Absolute number of human beings looking up at the sky, experiencing things. So, and you've got those rural spots too, right? Where you have no light pollution. You've got some stretches of that too. And we all know that's when the really cool UFOs come out, right?
Oh, that's what's up. So
Yeah.
Dan brought up this planet right here, and we're actually going to be covering this. So this is called the 55 Cancri E. And it's supposed to be like a super Earth, except it's like not at all, because did NASA find hell? Well, scientists brace for first glimpse of world that constantly burns. So when I was reading it, I felt like the article needed to be a lot longer. I didn't know anything about this planet. And I'm like, okay, this is a cool article, but I need more context. I need a lot more context actually. So I went ahead and did that. And it kind of blew my mind how cool this planet is and actually how fascinating the article is. So, to start off with, let's kind of go give you a brief summary of the article. And this planet is like a super Earth, and it's about 50 light years away. And we should be getting a picture of it by the James Webb Space Telescope. I mean, this is kind of one of the first targets that the telescope is going to look at. This planet is also known as Jansen, and I like that name. It's so much. It just flows so much better than 55 Cancri
Mhm.
E. Just Jansen. It just rolls
Tapest
off
one,
the tongue.
or all these names over the years. Yeah, finally.
Well, with this one, it orbits so close to its sun-like star, the surface conditions could literally be like the hell of biblical description, a dimension in a constant state of burning. So this planet is about 1.5 million miles away from its sun, which is about 1/25th the distance super hot Mercury is from our sun. Okay, so that's pretty darn close to its planet. Also, it only takes about, I'm going to read you the, it only takes this planet 16 hours to orbit the star. Can you believe that? 16 hours to orbit the entire star. Not 365 days like our planet has to
Yeah.
orbit our sun. You can do it
Man,
in
does
16
Pastor
hours.
be in that situation? Yeah, that's
It is
I wonder
super
why
crazy.
did you say this was a target of the James Webb
Right, it's one of the
Telescope?
first
I
targets.
wonder what it is about this planet, right? 'Cause I guess there's a lot that they could potentially I guess it's probably just the location, and it must be very auspicious, where it is. I think they can get some good shots of it, but
But I mean,
it doesn't sound like a planet that would, like, harbor life, right? Like, I wonder what we're hoping to learn from it, right? Yeah.
well, see, I agree with you on that. And I hate to think that the James Webb Space Telescope is only going to be looking at this, and one other planet for an entire year. I mean, I kind of hope that that changes. I mean, there's so much more out there that I'd be more interested in seeing, like planets of the Glizar system or the Kepler system or the Tau Ceti system. So those systems are thought to be systems with the most possibility of having life bearing worlds. But what are we looking at? Oh, we're looking at a hell like planet, which is
Right.
insane, which is like super cool. And we're going to get into that. But at the same time, it's disappointing that is one of the planets that's going to be studied for the first year, to our knowledge, to the public's knowledge at least. But
Right.
um okay, so I ended up looking and I'm like, why is NASA looking into this? Like, why is it significant? And it was stated that uh, they kind of just want to understand the how our planet evolved, and by looking at this particular planet that has like practically lava rain, maybe it could end up turning into a different planet over the millennia. It's still pretty vague what they're wanting to do or why they are studying it, but that was the answer that I got. Now, is it sufficient? No, it's
Yeah.
not, but I'll take it for the time being.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
because we're
take
not
it.
gonna get to see it play out, right? That's where I'm like, "Well, but then how are we gonna prove any hypothesis with it, right? Because 'Cause we're not gonna be here for a millennial, right?" But I guess maybe there's another one. Maybe they're trying to look at all the phases. It'd be interesting that if there could be targets, right, like you said, like, they're secret targets, maybe the ones that are more likely to be habitable, like, well, maybe we shouldn't show those images yet. Maybe it's our safest bet is showing images from this planet because there's not gonna be any alien life here, right? Like,
Maybe. I don't know. I
oh, no.
mean,
I mean, that's a
I have too
stretch.
many questions. I have
Yeah.
way too many questions. But it's believed this was first found by the Spitzer telescope in 2004, and it's been believed since then that it has surface temperatures far above the melting point of typical rock forming minerals. And it's believed to be tidally locked, meaning that one side is always facing the sun and the other side is always dark, also known as an eye world. And it's believed that the side always facing the sun has oceans of lava. And I'm like, what? That's so crazy. But NASA is theorizing that it's possible that the dynamic atmosphere is able to move the heat around the entire planet. So, in this scenario, the surface would heat up, melt, and even vaporize during the day, forming a very thin atmosphere that the Webb could possibly detect. And then in the evening, if it's not tidally locked, the vapor would cool and condense to form droplets of lava that would rain back to the surface, turning solid again as night falls. I'm thinking that could not be more terrifying. All you need is like fire breathing dragons
Yeah, that's a
in this
nightmare.
story.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes Mars look like, oh my gosh, an oasis.
Yeah, right. And even Mercury as well, our hottest planet in the solar system. And it's like Earth compared to this planet, which uh, I don't even have words. I'm so blown away by it. And the fact that it's going to be researched again is very cool, but at the same time is disappointing that it's only one of the two planets that will be looked into for the first year.
Mhm.
So, my question is, would you let's say you were an astronomer. Let's just go there. Would you want to research this exoplanet? And this is a question for everyone. Out of all of the exoplanets, out of just all of them that we know of so far, would you research this one if you had to?
I guess if you had all the time in the universe, you'd research them all, but that's, not the case. Far from the case. I think I'd be wanting to look into ones where there could be life. I mean, that's the obvious thing. I think I'd be wanting to look into planets that have resources that we could potentially. I think I'd almost wanna look at stuff closer by where we had more of a chance of sending a probe, to be honest. Couldn't we get, like, the best images ever too. I don't know if that's like a crazy idea or not. Are we spending a little too much time with planets that are too distant? I think I'd want to study something, even though I say I'm too scared to go to space, and I am. But I think I'd want to study a planet maybe a friend could go visit on my behalf and
FaceTime you?
right,
Maybe.
yeah. But
Look,
I
that
want
would be
something
a
that's a little
safer
more
option.
conventional. I think I'd
That
want
would be
something a
a
little more
safer
conventional.
option, but I would
Yeah,
definitely just bring my ship and travel the whole entire
yeah.
galaxy. Ronan, thank you so much, and thank you for complimenting me on my glasses. My eyes, like my
Thank
contacts, like have really been irritating my eyes lately. So I am wearing glasses today. But thank you so much. These are still somewhat new. They're not that new, but they're better than my old glasses.
I feel like I've seen you in glasses before, or am I just
I
making
wore
that
them to
up?
the last Skinwalker Ranch
Okay.
review last week.
Maybe that's
Was
what
it
it is
last
then.
week? Because like just
Yeah.
recently with like the temperature change and it being summer, just my
Mhm.
eyes just get a little bit more irritated with contacts. And for
I'm
those that wear
supposed to wear
contacts, I feel bad for all of you.
yeah, yeah, I couldn't do the contacts thing, I just couldn't, and then I lose my glasses, but guys, it's only a matter of time. You're gonna see me in glasses because 'cause I'm not getting younger, so yeah, yeah,
That
it's
is
bad.
so funny. Okay, so we only have one more article to cover. And this one I actually wanted to cover last week. We didn't have any time to do it. So we're going to do it this week. And maybe y'all have seen the headlines for it. For those that haven't, you are in for a pretty cool surprise. Talking about dragons, fire breathing dragons, and things like this. Well, maybe there has been an ancient dragon of death flying reptile
I missed
discovered
this one. This
in
is a fun to live
Argentina.
react to.
Yeah. Oh, Jazz, hi there. I'm so happy you can make it today. So, this article is pretty darn cool. And I do love dinosaurs. Like my inner child gets so excited when I read about dinosaurs, see dinosaur videos, just dinosaurs all day every day. I think they're the
Mhm.
coolest thing ever, but also terrifying. Like I would not want to be alive with dinosaurs everywhere. Like just these ginormous. Look, I don't want to get eaten. I'm just not in the mood for it today. So this article is pretty cool, and this one was posted by the Jerusalem Post. But again, a lot of media outlets have covered it. But pretty much, Argentinian scientists discovered a new species of a huge flying reptile dubbed the Dragon of Death, which is the coolest name. Out of all of the dinosaur names, this one takes the cake. Like, forget T Rexes. This should be the coolest one. So, this one, when they found the fossils, it lived about 86 million years ago. And it's said to be about the size of a school bus. So, about 30 feet long or about 9 meters long, which is ginormous. Like, no, thank you. I would not want to interact with this. If you could go back in time, let's say you had a time machine, would you go to the time of the dinosaurs? Live chat question and a question for you, Jane.
Oh, I think I would. I feel like I'm less afraid of traveling through time than through space, so they're probably one and the same. I think I would. I think I would. Yeah, I mean, I love Jurassic Park. I wanna see I mean, maybe this guy had feathers. That's easy to imagine, but yeah, I wanna say, do they look more like birds? What do they really sound like? Yeah, I think I would. But I don't mean I'd have to have, let's bring up Skinwalker Ranch again. Will dragon come? Like, I have to have, like, the actual dragon come, to defeat these dragons. I need, backup. Or the aliens gotta come. Can't just be little old me. I
I get that, but you guys just make sure to bring snacks.
yeah,
As long as you bring snacks, maybe you'll be safe. But
yeah.
the BBC has been showing a series called Prehistoric Planet. And Jane, our planet is like an alien world back then. The air was different, the plants were different, and it makes me wonder about all of those exoplanets. Like,
Right.
what if they have dinosaurs or like massive reptiles and there was like no big extinction? what would those worlds be like millions of years later? If they didn't go extinct, we wouldn't be here now, right? I mean, what would our world look like? That's my question.
Oh, yeah, I love it, and, if we get some excavation on Mars, right, and we're digging for Martian dinosaur bones, right, or alien dinosaur bones, whatever that would look like. Yeah, I know it's a great question, and it's funny because, like, I feel like the timeline we keep just hearing, news stories and scientific discoveries where we're like, "Wow, this is much older than we thought it was." It seems like everything's going farther and farther back in time, right? And there's which means there's even more to uncover, right, than we know. So yeah, I love dinosaur stuff. I do have to say what's really interesting is Ken Gerhard, who's this awesome cryptozoologist. He's also here in Texas. He gave a presentation on about these really strange big birds that were seen. Was it in Texas? I think so. And I want to say that there was a theory that these birds might be migrating from a place in Argentina,
Mm-hmm.
potentially a specific point in a place in Argentina where there's local lore of these giant reptilian like pterodactyl like birds essentially that still nest there and live there, but they'll travel around, I guess, and then go back home. So that's like I gotta send this to Ken and see if I'm remembering correct, and it was Argentina. But that'd be fun.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jazz, wow, thank you so much. Here's an interesting question. It says, Christina, if you can go back in time and
Good
ancient people
question.
wanted to worship you as a goddess, would you stay and let them or come back? Depends what time period. If they had like grapes and like good food during this time period, maybe I would stay for a little bit, you know? But for the most part, no. I worship it makes me uncomfortable, very much so. Also recognition makes me uncomfortable as well. But if I'd I would probably jump forward in time. I would probably go forward maybe about 1,000 years instead of going back in time.
Mm.
That's kind of where my mind would go because I want to see what humans have to offer 1,000 years in the future. Like, what will we be capable of then? We already have the history books to tell us what it was like in the past, and they had some good food, some decent food. But I want to see what the future holds. Jane, what about yourself? Would you go back in time and be worshipped, or would you be like, no thanks?
I love this question, Jazz. It's so real because I think I'd like to think, oh my gosh, I'm such a good person and I would never allow, anybody to heroicize me like that or whatever. I don't think that I would be comfortable with that either, Christina. That feels all kinds of shady and uh yeah, I don't like that at all. But I love that question. But yeah, how could you not hang around for a day or two?
But then also, you would
I was
probably try to be assassinated as well because the people that like you, there'd be more people that don't like you.
Yeah.
It's
I think
dangerous.
I would definitely there would be a part of me that would be like, "Well, wait, like, can I help these people if they really are, like, looking up to me so much?" I'd be like, "Wait, am I supposed to be here right now? Maybe I could if they're paying attention to me and listening to me." No, because I don't even like I'm pretty even hesitant to give advice to people, like, on live streams and stuff. I have all these disclaimers and asterisks. I don't think I'd be comfortable ruling over, a group of people. That's not in my blood. I don't have, any presidents, I don't think, in my ancestry or anything like that. I think we were a different lot. So I don't think I'm meant for that. Maybe some people are meant to be worshipped and, and
I don't think anyone should be worshipped, like, because it goes to their head. Aditya has an interesting statement, and it says, interesting to think that an alien world a few 100 million light years away with a very powerful telescope would see dinosaurs roaming on Earth.
Mhm.
I totally agree with you. I think that if we had telescopes like that, and we could actually see inside of the environment, the plants, the entities, the creatures that live there, I think we would probably have our minds blown. I think we would be so blown away. We would build a rocket so quickly and just take ourselves there.
That's the thing is I mean, we haven't figured out how to do, like, a telescope where yeah, I love thinking about that, right? Because you have to have something that can go so fast, like, faster than the speed of light to go capture that image and return it to you in real time, right? So that would be amazing advance, right? If they could get that zoomed in, and see the dinosaurs here.
That would
Uh,
be pretty cool. Well,
yeah,
Jessica said, if it was ancient Egyptian times, I would so stay. Oh, I mean,
time.
I think it would be a fascinating time to see some truths about the pyramid's construction. So, Jessica, I like where you're going with this. If that were the case, then I would probably go back in time just to see how they were really built.
Yeah, I wanna know what really happened. I feel like there's gigantic holes in our history books. I mean, we can go physically, to the moon in real time today and learn about it, but we cannot go to the moon in the past. So we have to do a lot of deductive, analysis and rely on a lot of testimony, right? And kind of indirect evidence to know what happened in the past. I think there's huge holes. I would wanna go in the past, find out what really happened because I think that'd be valuable to know for the present. I don't want to know what the future is like. I would have tremendous anxiety uh, in the present if I knew where everything was going or was going to end up in X amount of years or after my time. I don't think we're meant. The thing is, we actually can kind of mini time travel, because we're not all experiencing time at the same rate, right? So like animals or smaller, like little bugs and stuff are processing more information at a faster rate, right? So like we are in slow motion to the fly, that's why we can't catch it, right? So we have just the right intuitions and just the right perception of time that we need to function
That's
and
interesting.
not go crazy, right? I think we'd
Yeah.
go crazy if
Well,
we knew it. It was like in 1,000 years from now. I think it'd be so different.
it would be. I mean, everything would be different.
Yeah.
Dan says, Christina has a big question about visiting the past or the future. What would the food be like?
Right.
and
I noticed that.
that's a really funny statement because for me, the question of intelligent alien life is if they have ice cream and ramen noodles. I mean, that's it for me. They are intelligent if they have those food items. Like that's it. Like very, very smart. Also,
Fair concern.
Luis, so happy to catch you here, my friend. From UCR, and there was no Skinwalker Ranch review this week, but there should be one next week now that
Yep.
it's no longer Memorial Day weekend, to
Mhm.
my knowledge.
Or
Well,
next
Jane,
Tuesday. Yeah.
we covered all of the articles, but we have like a few seconds left, and there's one that I really want to bring up that really made me laugh. And it's only a few seconds long, and pretty much a woman wrote an essay entitled "How to Murder Your Husband," and then she was found guilty for murdering her husband. And this murder actually happened in 2018, but this article just arose not too long ago, and pretty much her book was tales of attempted murder, lust, crime, and infidelity. So that is a great way to end today's show. Jane, thank you so much for being my guest co-host. And Deranged Lunatic, thank you so much for the super sticker. Jane, where can people find you online?
Yeah. Oh, thanks so much for having me, Christina. This was so much fun. Thank you, everybody in the live chat. This was a blast. I mean, you can just search UFO Jane, other UFO Janes yet. So if, if you search that on YouTube, you should find my YouTube, Instagram. If you are in Texas, though, and you want to really follow UFOs, there's a Facebook page for Texas UFOs and TexasUFOsightings.com for that kind of thing.
Well, Thank you so much. That is it for today for our weekly episode of Strange Paradigms. Hopefully, you learned something new. You caught up with the weird and mysterious news of the week. That's what we like to do here. That's what we cover here every single Friday at 3 p.m. PST. Make sure to visit the website at strangeparadigms.com. There you can find all the show archives and a bunch of other goodies as well. Follow me on Twitter at eyes_on the skies. I will see all of y'all on Tuesday. Be safe and remember, keep your eyes on the skies.